All right, perfect. Okay, so how do we do this? I think when we first met, we had just this really interesting conversation because I remember talking to you and I was like, what are you, some kind of a genius or something? And I think your answer was yes. So that was kind of the beginning of the relationship. And one of the things in that call that I really remember and I resonated with it was you were talking about why you started your company. And it comes out of a place where I think a lot of people come from, which is what? Why did you
Suffering.
start out? Why did you start out? Suffering.
Suffering.
Exactly.
Yeah, everybody has a plan for their life, and then life happens. So I was an attorney for 4.5 years. I owned a tech company for 6 years. And then I became deputy chief of staff at the Department of Children and Family Services. So I was fourth in charge and overseeing some of the biggest projects for the state. And I couldn't keep the tech company going and the law firm and have the job with the state. Plus, I was forcing people to work, which they didn't like. So then it was being reported that I had a company, and it was fine. You're allowed to have a company as long as you're not using your influence to benefit your corporation, which I never even promoted my company other than saying I had a tech company. But that was only within the context of like CRM or organization or something like that. But and then when I was leaving the state, I had 4 opportunities to be vice president executive with large agencies. And I took one of the offers and then told the other 3 people no. And then I self-reported to the Office of Inspector General. And they said, due to my position, I wasn't allowed to work with anybody that had a government contract or license for a year. So then I applied for 800 jobs because I already knew what it was like to be an entrepreneur, and I didn't want to do that again because it's hard. and every job said I was overqualified. I had 8 interviews out of 800 applications. 4 things. I had 8 offers of interviews. 4 of them were scams, so I didn't do those. And then the other 4, I made it through the interview process, and then they said I was overqualified. Other than Amazon, I interviewed to be the operations manager for Amazon, which was pretty cool. I feel like even if you get that shot, you've done pretty well in life. And it's like 2 weeks of prep work for those 7 hours of interviews that they give you. And they don't tell you why they turn you down. And then I had been doing consulting for the past couple of years just because I was known due to my position. And so people kept coming to me to help them grow organizations, for-profits and nonprofits. And then I had texted one of my female associates, connected me with another woman, and I sent her 6 text messages saying, these are the 6 things I would teach you over the next 6 weeks. This is when there was no piece of paper that even said what I did. And she responded, she told her friend, hey, this guy keeps hitting me up. And it made it sound like I was asking her out as opposed to what it was, which was just a lot of business related text messages because I didn't have a website. And I said, wait, no, that's not what happened. I just, those were business related text messages. So I called a graphic designer, one of these guys that I mentor. And I said, man, I need a website I need a logo and a website and a company name tomorrow. And this was a year and a half ago. And then the famous Tony P hired me, and a lot of other people hired me. And my business blew up really fast. Oh, yeah. You want to hear my Wendy's story, Larry?
I love the Wendy. Yeah, I love the Wendy story.
So I applied for Wendy's. And every time somebody asks you this question about how you started your business, you really want to have a romantic story behind it. Like I had a vision. I was sleeping and I dreamed and there were waterfalls and then this awesome thing happened. But that's not what happened. So I had an interview at Wendy's and I have expensive suits and I go in and he looks at my seat. Well, first I met with the store manager who was 30 years old. She had been at Wendy's since she was 15 years old. And she said, Sajad, in life, you have to work your way up. I was like, yeah, you have to work your way up in life. I got that. So she's like, well, you'll start out on the flipping the burgers thing. And I was like, hey, can I talk to the district manager before I accept this job? And she said, fine. So I meet with him and he looks at my CV and he looks at my clothes and he said, Sajad, what the hell are you doing here? I said, well, Dave, I'm trying to get a job, you know. He said, why Wendy's? I said, well, you got 42 stores. It was franchise owned. You have 42 stores. You have 1,000 employees. You only have 2 corporate people, an HR person and a operations person. So you don't have a training person. And so I was a social worker and community organizer for 16 years. And the demographic was the same, Black and Latino. And, that's who was working at the Chicago's Wendy's location. So I'm like, I already know the culture, and I can train people and inspire them and motivate them. And then, so I'll run the Wendy's for 2 months. I'll show you I got the best Wendy's ever. And then you'll promote me to a district manager and then a corporate exec. And then, he texted me a week later, like, I'm not going to give you a job because you're going to quit as soon as you find something better. And I said, I haven't found something better in years. And he's like, I'm not going to hire you, Sajad. So that was it. And then I just blew the business up because that's what had to happen.
It's a great story to me, and I had the same experience, but not at Wendy's. So I closed a family business. I had an opportunity to cash out of that business before it collapsed, and everybody told me, "You're crazy. You should never do that. Make it work." And it wasn't going to work. And now all those kinds of businesses are gone. We were manufacturers reps selling clothes to retail stores, and nobody does that anymore on a regional basis. So I closed that business and then immediately got recruited by the recruitment industry for people in like middle age who don't know what to do to make a living. So the insurance people, the franchise people, they were like all over me. And I was going to open a State Farm agency. I sold State Farm insurance to businesses. I walked all over Chicago for a year. Puerto Rican funeral home I closed. She wouldn't buy the boiler insurance because she didn't want to pay any money, and just all over Chicago. And that kind of led to realizing I don't want to do that. So I got into marketing tech, and I went through 4 startups. I got fired 3 times, basically, or twice. One I quit, and I got a job at a tech startup, and the offer letter never came through. And the guy said the board had put a hiring freeze on, and let's talk again in 3 months. Sorry, nobody told him. He's a VP of sales. So I was like, I'm starting to understand how tech startups work. So that was it. And then I started Call Sales Partners out of desperation because I couldn't figure out how to get a job. But now I'm looking back on it, and I want to get your thoughts on this. I don't think I would ever be successful working for somebody or fitting into anyone else's system. So I think the solopreneur thing is a destiny. It's like, we kind of have to do this. We have to do this. We don't have a choice. It's like being an artist or a musician or a painter or something. Like eventually it's coming out somehow. Do you agree?
One of the things I always brag about is that I've been promoted at every job I ever had in 9 months or less. And the part that I leave out is I've been fired from every job I've ever had in 2 years or less. So like, I just do whatever the hell I want all the time, say what I want. And, that's how I am. And so they'll promote me because they're like, wow, you're completely self-motivated. We don't need to manage you. Like when I was in the hood, I created 5 job training programs, 5 GED programs at all different agencies, adult basic education programs. I went to the store and I bought Barnes and Nobles. I bought one of those GED books. It's like 5,000 pages. I cut the binder, I created a syllabus, and I made a GED program out of it. And I had a 25% graduation rate, which was really high for people getting their GEDs. And I did that without funding. Total investment was $35. So then they promoted me, right? And then 2 years later, they said, hey, you're just helping everybody that comes in the door. You're helping people get jobs, go to college, start businesses, buy houses. And I'm like, yeah, okay, what's the problem? They said, that's not your job. And you're not getting the paperwork on people. I said, look, the grant says I got to place 4 people in a job per month. I'm doing 6. So the agency is getting its money. So, you're driving your Audi, you're sitting in your office. I'm the one out here in these streets working. So what's the problem? So she's like, are you going to stop doing this? I said, no, but there's options here. She said, what are the options? I said, you can fire me or you can leave me alone. And she said, well, where are we going from here? I said, I don't know. I just told you the options. And she said, well, okay, don't worry about it then. I said, okay, can I go back to work now? She said, yes. So, I'm going to do whatever I want. I mean, I do a good job, but I need to be left alone. Like that's what was great about my boss when I was with the state. She just gave me mission work. Like she said, the adoption time, we have the highest adoption time in the country. Go fix it. So I organized people all over the state. and found out the inefficiencies in the processes and reduced the adoption time from 558 days to 126 days in about 9 months. And it had nothing to do with reprimanding people. It was about figuring out processes, inefficiencies in processes. But all she did was give me missions and then say, let me know what support you need along the way. And that was it. And I can function if that's the kind of boss you are, but that's, you know, a rare breed.
I've worked for a bunch of startups and a couple of mom and pop kind of companies. And the only corporation I ever worked for was 6 months at Arthur Gallagher. And I went in there and the guy was like, he wanted to know my sales plan. And I put 0. I said, nothing's going to happen the first year. The money will come the next year because I got to go out and meet all these people. And I don't know anybody because it was selling to high net worth individuals. And I didn't have a network from like my family or something. And then they fired me after about 6 months. So I've had similar experiences with this. And again, that led to making the decision to kind of do this. But you talk about the realities of self-employment. And I think there's 2 sides of it. You know, there's the hard side, but there's also the joy side. And I know you've gone through both experiences. You know, what's the joy side to you?
Oh, my favorite word in the world is autonomy. And philosophically, that's defined as independent, self-governing and free thinking. So I guess people have a fantasy about entrepreneurship. I got a joke that follows that, but I'll leave it alone right now. But anyway, they got a fantasy that about entrepreneurship, and they don't understand what it really is. Like, so you're gonna work. I tell my clients, you sleep 8 hours, you work 12, and you're off 4. But that's not how I operate. I work 16 and 19 hours a day every day. But it's not like that I have to work. Nobody's making me do anything. But that's the thing about entrepreneurship and self-discipline. So you can wake up and, you know, get drunk and play video games or something, or you wake up and you work all day long. So it's a choice. Like one of my clients said to me a couple of months ago on the scheduling that it felt like a chore because it felt like it was being done for me. And once she realized she was doing it for her, then it's beneficial. So you have to understand that your work ethic is for you. And you're not going to have somebody pushing you, and you have to be your own boss. That's one of the things I teach people how to do, which is not be, activity does not equal productivity. So ripping and running all the time. My clients say so much bullshit. So I get, the last one said she had on her schedule processing. So I get processing, I've gotten ruminating, I've gotten flex time, I've gotten contemplation, research, all kinds of stuff that means nothing to making money. And then they're wondering why they're not making money, because you're not doing stuff that makes freaking money. So it's just a different mentality that all the time has to be valuable, useful time, because you're monitoring yourself. Well, another thing I teach is you have this employee named Mike, and you're paying him $200,000 a year. So you do your schedule hour by hour with quantifiable measurements, and then you hand yourself the schedule as though your employee just gave you the schedule. And what questions would you be asking your employee? What is acceptable in that schedule? I had one client that I talked to her at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and she was yawning. And I said, "Are you freaking tired? It's 1 o'clock in the afternoon, you know?" She said, "Yeah, I just didn't, you know, I stayed up later than I should have." I said, "Okay." I said, "What if your employee was yawning at 1 o'clock?" She said, "Oh, I tell him to get a cup of coffee and take a 10-minute walk." And I'm like, that's not honest. People are not honest with themselves when they're being.
Someone can mute there.
I had a baby. Somebody got so excited they got pregnant. I want to name him Malcolm. Anyways, it's a different mentality, and you have to have massive self-discipline, and understand that what you're doing is for you. If you do what you love for a living, you never work a day in your life. So you got to be 100%. If you're not 100%, then you can call Eileen. She'll help you get a job. Like you got to be all into this thing. It's got to be your entire being and identity. I think, Larry, like what you said, I think we are just entrepreneurs, and I try to create entrepreneurs, but I don't know. It's got to be inside of your soul. It's got to just be, this is just who you are. I was born this way. I started reading Entrepreneur Magazine when I was 12 years old. I've always wanted to be an entrepreneur.
I've always been able to work hard. I've always been able to go after it and drive towards the destination. And what happened, and I think it's age in part, what happened this time around, when my business collapsed in the fall of 2020, and I'm like, I could owe 200-300 grand by the end of the year. We could be bleeding 20, 30, 40K a month, based on this scenario, and we'll turn it around. But I just like, I don't want to turn it around. I just want out, was the grind of it. So that's is this whole round now is different for me. So it's not about grinding it out, and it's not about learning how to work harder or anything like that. For me personally, it's about the dream life destination and how can I get there on my own terms. And that's what was missing before with the other businesses. So there was holes. So in the family business, it was great. I mean, we had a seasonal business. So I'm running this seasonal business so I could take off for a month and go do whatever I wanted. But I hated the customers and I hated the industry. So it was always pretty miserable. And then the other business called Sales Partners, I loved the industry. It was fascinating to me working with tech companies, software companies, positioning them in the market, getting them sales and all this stuff. But I didn't like servicing the customers and the sales, just, kind of the dynamic. Anybody who's been a VP of sales in a tech company knows exactly what I'm talking about. You don't want to be doing that, or at least I don't. But I was doing it for 20, 30 different companies sometimes. So it didn't work. So the whole thing's got to come together for me to make it work.
I practiced law for 4.5 years, and all my friends and my parents think I'm an idiot, right? Because that's $300 an hour I was making. And it was really easy for me to get clients because most lawyers don't have personalities. So I talk to everybody everywhere. I don't look down on anybody else, regardless of their job or all the stupid social constructs in which the ways most people judge other people: race, gender, sexuality, economics, politics, religion. None of that stuff matters to me in terms of my assessment of the quality of a person. So I'll talk to everybody everywhere. And as a lawyer, you get a lot of clients that way because everybody has a legal problem, or whether they want to start a business, or it's divorce or child custody or wills and trusts, whatever it is. But it wasn't worth it to me because the amount of stress for the amount of money was not worth it. Like when I did a wills and trust case. So this woman's husband is dying. I'm doing all the paperwork. I think I'm doing everything correctly. And when the guy passed, it turned out I did everything correctly. But the amount of stress I felt in terms of if I did anything wrong, this screws up her ability to make the decisions for her husband's physical health and their financial life if I did the forms wrong. So that kind of shit, man, like, and I never charged people the right amount of money. I was a social worker lawyer. Everybody paid me $600 because they would tell me what was wrong. And I'm like, oh man, that's sad. Whether it was a family member dying or it was a business being sued, I always felt bad for people. And so I was a bad business manager as an attorney. I was a great attorney, but the stress was not worth the work, regardless of how much money I can make. And my friends and my parents still to this day think I'm an idiot because they just don't understand. They don't understand the work that I do. They don't understand the amount of money I make. My mom asked me last week, she's like, this thing you do, is that like Skillshare? And Skillshare is that thing where you teach people how to play guitar for like $5 or something like that. And I was like, yeah, Ma, I share skills with people for money. So it's kind of like teaching them guitar, but I do something different at a different price bracket. But yeah, but I mean, if you hate your life though, then why do that? Why do something that you hate? You're gonna die. Hey, you guys are all gonna die. I got a notice here. You're gonna die. So have fun and be yourself and do whatever the fuck you want to do. Don't listen to anybody else because you're gonna die. So yeah, it wasn't fun.
You started coming out of pain, and I think that's exactly my experience too. So when they let me out of the mental hospital when I was 15, for bipolar and craziness and stuff, and skidding off the rails out of high school, they sent me to AA, I was in AA from 16 to 24. I'm not an alcoholic. I love scotch. I was around a lot of different kinds of people. So I was out of the social construct in my key development years. So I hung around with people who've been in prison. I hung around with people who ran companies. I hang around with people who were garbage men. So I didn't live in the social construct so I don't have that. And I think it's important with the solopreneur thing, because I can see all these people doing stuff that are in these boxes that aren't really right. And it's just because it's what people do. So it's called conventional wisdom. So Charles Bukowski has a great quote of, whenever you see the crowd doing anything, go the opposite direction, because the crowd is always wrong. And I totally believe that, but being able to see that from above and kind of find your own path, I think is really important for everybody who works for themselves. So for me, in some ways, it was easy to get there, but hard to find my place in it. But I think for other people, maybe it's hard to see it. So we call it reality-based thinking, just seeing the truth about what yourself, and you got to start inside yourself. That was my journey, is inside myself first. And then that brings me into the world, because the world's inside myself, right? Some complicated philosophical Buddhist concept, but that's what my experience has been that. So I think that's what you're saying. And I know you love the word authenticity, but that's kind of what it is, right? It's figuring out who you really are outside of the constructs of what society has molded you to be, and embracing that.
I want to say something about your mindset part. I was thinking about this last night before I went to sleep, and I was thinking about that when I woke up this morning. And then that's the first thing you brought up. And so I was thinking about, so I think that there's a level of determination inside of me that I don't know that anybody else has it, in terms of, when I say something is going to happen, I completely believe it. Like, zero doubt that what I think, like, next year I'm getting a Lamborghini, the year after that I'm getting a helicopter. One of my friends is one of the head people for the Catholic Church in Chicago. And we became friends 25 years ago. He was doing community work, I was doing community work. And he came up to me and he was talking to me about Jesus. And I said, is it possible that you're completely wrong about what you're saying to me right now? And he said, yeah, definitely, I could be completely wrong. I said, all right, cool, we can be friends.
No, we can be friends.
We can be friends. As long as you don't think that you know objective reality, then we can be friends, because I don't think anybody knows objective reality, including the atheists. And so anyways, like, I've been homeless a few times as an adult. I've been rich, I've been poor, and I'm an entrepreneur. So, doing well now, but it's been bad at points. So after law school, my parents don't have college degrees, so they didn't know that I needed a license. They didn't know I needed to take the bar. They didn't get it. They thought I was being pretentious, which is the number one thing they tried to raise us to avoid, because they both grew up in poverty and they didn't want us to grow up entitled. So they did the bipolar opposite of that, which didn't even, they didn't provide support at some times that would have seemed reasonable, like when I finished law school. And so I told my friend I'm homeless, living out of a backpack, going house to house with different friends' houses. And I was like, man, you know what? I'm going to buy a house in cash. And then, I don't know, 6 months later or something, I said it at one point, and 6 months later, I had the house paid off in cash. And we're in the house, and I had to, rehab in it. He's like, man, I got to talk to you away from everybody else. I said, okay, what's up, bro? He's like, man, you say the most fucked up shit. I'm like, what do you mean? He says, the whole time I've known you, you've always said stupid things. And then 6 months later, the stupid thing that you said happened. And when you're telling me these things, I'm always thinking, this is so stupid. He's an idiot. That'll never happen. And I think that everybody else needs to have that. Well, they don't have to, I guess. I think it's useful to have that massive self-confidence to the level of, it's going to happen. Like, whatever I think is going to happen, I have zero doubt that what I say is going to happen is going to happen. I just tell myself something. And then, like Les Brown says, it's going to work. The how it's going to work is not up to you, right? just once you set your mind to something, thoughts are physical. So once you set your mind to it, don't let anything, and don't listen to anybody else. Don't let anything stop what you've decided is going to happen.
So my experience is is I'm there with that too now. So I did my future best life plan in multi dimensions, all of it. I know it's going to happen. I don't have any doubt at all. I know it's going to happen as long as I stay connected to this energy source that I'm connected to. But I didn't have that most of my life. So what I'm saying is you can learn this. You can learn how, but you have to do it. So you can't learn it intellectually. That's why I'm not an intellectual, because I didn't learn it intellectually. So, but what I did was I learned how to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and connect with myself every day on September 20th, 2020. And I began building a practice. So it's called a practice. And you do things and you experiment to connect into that belief system. Your own belief system you already have inside. You just got to bring it out and clear out all the other clutter. So it can be done. I think anybody can do it. And there's all the kinds of tools. So when you start doing these things, all the tools start showing up. So all these programs and books and pamphlets, Pritchett's one of them that really helped me a lot. U squared, it's about exponential growth and what you have to do. You don't figure out how you're going to get there. You figure out what that vision is and what you're supposed to, what you're going towards, and you have to lead out into uncomfortability every day. So I started doing that, and that worked. You got the power of attraction kind of stuff around energy kind of development. So you attract other people with similar energy. They just sort of show up. I did that started working, all these things, the meditative practices. And I'm kind of going on a little bit about this just because I think everyone needs to, if you want to do one thing that makes a massive impact, build a habit where you check in with yourself every day by yourself. Most people can't even sit still in their own head for 5 minutes because they want to grab the phone or get distracted. And I think that's where I was. So I was stuck in my head in this idea of push because things aren't going to work out, negative thought loops. When I broke that pattern, I think where you've been for a long time, right? And now then you still have to build the skills. So there's a guy on TikTok that I actually went after where he did this law of attraction thing where he drew it all out. I think you might have saw it. And he said, in my program in 14 days, somebody did this and somebody just put $14,000 in their bank account. I thought you're kind of missing the point. So yeah, you got to do that stuff and bring up that energy. But like you said, you got to go do the work and you got to know the frameworks and you got to build skills in the marketplace.
Yeah, I think too, it's cheesy, but look up Stuart Smalley on Saturday Night Live in the 1990s.
Michael Jordan.
I'm good enough, I'm smart enough, and gosh darn it, people like me.
Yeah.
I walk around all day talking to myself about how much I love myself. So all my stupid clients have regular self-esteem or low self-esteem. I'm freaking in love with me. So I think everybody should be in love with themselves. I think you should be telling yourself that you're brilliant and beautiful and cool and wonderful and love yourself. I can't quote verbatim. I guess I could do whatever I want really, but Cat Williams says something about this, so look into it. In terms of the definition of self-esteem, it comes from the self. I'm paraphrasing because it's Cat Williams, but you gotta love you. And what really changed my life, because I got hated on a lot as a child, going from a lower income neighborhood to a rich white neighborhood when I was 13 years old and the war was going with Iraq. My name's Sajad Husain, and I come from a Muslim home, and that did not go well. And I was called lots of names, sand nigger. I was jumped, attacked. The school administration would not stick up for me. My parents did not stick up for me. My dad said, don't start problems at the white people's school. So I was just getting jumped every day. And then I heard a lyric by a Tribe Called Quest, a guy named Malik. And he said, if I don't say I'm the best, tell me who the hell will. You got to put your spirit first. And that lyric changed my life, because then I was like, you know what, fuck everybody. I'm just going to love myself. And that's what I do now. So I like positive reinforcement, but I'm not used to it and I don't need it. I don't need anybody else's support or encouragement or kind words. It's nice and I like it, but it's about believing in you believing in you, and you loving you, and you believing that whatever you set your mind to is possible. and that not just possible, that you're going to make it happen. It's going to happen. Like as soon as I think it, it's over. It's done. So can we go to
Yeah, I
questions?
totally agree. And I think that the way I look at it is people have to find their own way to that. And there's a lot of modalities. And the important thing is action. So you're trying the modalities all the time. I give them all to you. I've been studying these things for like I know all the modalities. I'm trying them because I'm trying to figure out what works for me, what works for different people, which ones are bullshit. And you try it until it works. But the only way you can do it is if you create a habit. So you have to have a habit pattern because you got to put the work in, unless you just sort of are magically there already. And then you're probably getting what you want. So any final thoughts? And then I know Rob's had his hand up. We want to.
His arm's worn out. Yeah, I saw some idiot doing a speech 2 days ago, and he was telling people you don't need a coach. All you need to do is believe in yourself. And that's not true because you don't know what you don't know, and you don't know that you don't know what you don't know. So you don't even know. So how can, I mean, you've heard start with the why. Nobody freaking does that when they pitch. You know that you need to show added value. People don't know how to do that. So it'll be my final thought, quick Frank Agan story. A year ago, I was talking to him about putting all my information out there. He said, I was asking whether I should put my entire program out there on LinkedIn or not. He said, give it all away because people will hire you to implement. And that was exactly right. And that's the main difference in what has propelled my business is that advice. Just give it all away. If you do social media or you're a writer or you teach people how to give speeches or whatever it is you do, give it all away for free. Put it online because people are going to look at it and all they're going to do is get overwhelmed. They're not going to know how to implement that information.
I think you made an important point. And then, hey, Dave, could you spotlight Rob? And then we'll get a question from him. And for me, we need a lot of frameworks. You've got your framework approach. I got my framework approach. Other people have theirs. But we need these frameworks that have been proven out and are organized and are easy to follow. So we can do them and find out which pieces work for ourselves. And the reason it's important is that the whole world's changed, and it's not because of COVID. This stuff's been coming for a long time. So I don't know. I study all this stuff, right? Content Inc., Joe Pelusi, which was huge, and HubSpot. Like Rob's nodding his head. We know all this stuff. I've been following this for years. It doesn't work anymore. There's still a whole industry of people doing it. There's other people. So that's gated content. That's over, right? There's too much content, so it doesn't work anymore. So there's other things now. So you got to find the frameworks that are working today. So Rob, did you have a question or a comment?
I had a comment because both of you sat there and said, I can't work. I didn't want to work for somebody else. And there comes a transition, and Sajad will like this. And I love Sajad. I just met him. We just had a conversation a week or so ago. And if you're going to work with him, you have to put your adult pants on because he's going to take you to town at times when needed. And he does a great job at that. By the way, Sajad, I'm actually now Linda's fractional VP of sales. So she's not doing her sales. I'm doing her sales for her. And this goes into my comment is, as entrepreneurs, you have to, at some point in time, realize what you're not good at and what you don't like doing. And what you don't like doing, outsource. Find somebody else that can do it better than you, for you. Linda, and you're going to kick. She's like, he said the same thing you said. First of all, I'm underpriced. Secondly, I don't know how to talk about what I do. And so I do. And just for anyone that's out there, she actually will get you on the first page of YouTube, which gets you on the first page of Google with video. And she's phenomenal at what she does. So I'm actually going to take her business to that next level and grow her sales. She's outsourcing that to me. So if there's something you don't like, if you don't like sales, if you don't like bookkeeping, if you don't like accounting, if you don't like something you can't stand doing, outsource it to somebody else. You're in business by yourself, but you're in business for yourself, but you don't need to be in business by yourself. There are other people that are out there that want to help. Larry's here to help. Sajad's here to help. I'm here to help. Find somebody that can get you to that next level, that can do the things that you don't like doing.
We have a group that meets every Wednesday, and what we're doing is lifting each other's consciousness. That's what we do in that group. So that keeps me up here. It's one thing. That's a tool. It's a necessary tool. This is not a, this is a team sport. I didn't know that. So when I built my other company, I did it by myself. So it was a grind. I never told anybody what was going on. I didn't share the pain and struggle I was going through. And well, the people I shared it with didn't understand what I was talking about because they didn't work for themselves.
Well, see, and that's what I get with a lot of business owners that I work with. They're like, Rob, I feel like sometimes I'm just screaming at the wall because I can't talk to my employees because I'm the boss. I should know everything. I can't talk to, go home and talk about it because it's like, leave work at work. I've heard enough about your work. I don't want to hear it anymore. So who do I talk to? And that's what a lot of times a business coach like Sajad or like myself does, is we help you walk through the process of, okay, how do you make this work?
So normally we do breakout rooms for a half hour after this. Maybe we just kind of stay in the main group because I'm seeing a bunch of hands coming up. So I don't know what you guys think, but I like this conversation. So anybody feel free to stay. Jeff, I think you were up next.
All right, thanks, Larry. First of all, great conversation. You guys need to do this more often. This was really, really good. Second of all, to Rob's point, I've met with Larry, I've met with you. Sajad, I've known for many, many years. Rob, I just met with yesterday, and we may be kicking off something together, and we're actually having a second one-on-one tomorrow. Linda, I've met. What she does, she's the best at. So if you haven't met with any of these people, Larry, Sajad, Rob, or Linda, you need to do it. Now, my question and comment. Number one, comment for Larry. I was with State Farm for 7 years, so at some point, you and I have to get together and have a beer and trade war stories about State Farm.
You want to know about the nepotism in the Chicago region? If you want to get an agency,
I know about it.
we can talk about that.
It's rampant.
I got myself up to the top of the list because I actually produced. They like production.
Yeah.
Documented production. That was the only way I was going to get an agency because it was going to all the kids of the agents who were lazy.
Yeah, I worked for an agent who was the son of another agent. So yes, I know about the nepotism. And his sister was an agent also. How about that? Anyway, question though. Sajad, you and I over the years have talked a lot about fear of failure versus faith in outcomes when you take the right actions. And this is something you guys kind of sort of talked about already, but you didn't put it so much in that context. I was wondering if you guys would like to talk about that a little bit.
About fear and action?
Yeah.
You or me first, Larry?
Well, I'd just say that fear is the gold. Like if you're not afraid, at least once a day, you're doing something wrong. Now, I think you're going to look at it different. So I would look at it differently, but although I will say it does change after a while. So I'm not afraid that much anymore, even when I'm doing things I don't know how to do, but I built to that. So to get to that, so there's transitions. So like what Rob's saying about outsource and all this, well, there's a transition process to actually do that. So you got to map out your future best life. You've got to identify all the components and frameworks that are needed. You've got to figure out how to build the revenue. You got to make the transition right. You got to do the jobs, learn them really well, do them yourself first. I've done that now 3 times in companies. You don't just find somebody and say, oh, go do this. It won't work. So there's like a methodology of the whole thing. That methodology includes fear. So embracing fear, doing stuff you don't know how to do. And then eventually I think the fear starts going away when you do uncomfortable things. So that's I think where I'm at with that. I don't know if that answers your question or not.
Yeah,
but
Larry's wrong about a lot of things. This would be one of those times. So when I was 17, I was diagnosed with what they called an incurable terminal disease. I spent 4.5 days on life support, 8 months in a wheelchair. I was given 3 to 10 years to live. I could have found Jesus. Instead, I did a lot of drugs, a lot of hallucinogenic drugs from 18 to 20. At 20 years old, I caught a Class X felony, the highest felony under murder. I was facing 6 to 30 years in prison. So fear of what? What are you afraid of?
well, yeah, but you're deciding that for yourself. So for other people, that fear is there. So what do you do with the fear? You got to lean into the fear and use it to your advantage because it's going to be there for most people.
I wasn't done yet, Larry. I was going to.
Sorry, go ahead.
I didn't interrupt you, Larry. We'll talk about this later.
I'm gonna get a text.
Should I terminate him, Larry, now? Should we just like?
I want to fire him. You know, he's broken up with me 3 times in 6 months. You know, you're upsetting people. I know, I upset people. I don't care. Anyways, I don't have fear, because if you understand death, then none of this stuff matters. It's kind of like a positive attribute of an existential crisis, which is the radical freedom that comes from the existential crisis. So from a more practical perspective for regular human beings who are not, I had an ex-girlfriend of mine said, you know, that part of the brain where you're supposed to care what other people think is missing from your brain. And it is. I don't care. I really don't care what people think. But failure, the redefinition, there needs to be a paradigm shift. This is for normal humans, so the rest of you guys. A shift in thinking of what failure means. Failure does not mean you try something and it didn't work. As an entrepreneur, that's one of those paradigm shifts, one of the essential paradigm shifts. It's you did it that way and it didn't work, and that's a benefit, because now you know not to do it that way again. And everything is a win. Every time something doesn't work for you, that's good. You take some, well, it's only good if you take accountability. If it doesn't work and then you blame other people, you've not gained. You got to say, I didn't close that deal, and don't say, oh, that person was an idiot. They didn't see my value, or that person didn't have any money. You say, why didn't that person see my value? Why didn't they see that I was valuable enough to give me money? What did I do wrong, and how can I grow? So 80% of the clients that I don't close that are qualified leads is because I told a joke. That's why I lose deals, because I have an inappropriate sense of humor and I tell jokes, and then they don't hire me because they think I'm not going to be serious about my business. But it's examining, what are you doing wrong? Constantly looking at yourself. And one more thing quickly. So let's say your girlfriend freaks out on you. I think this is a good example. And you don't think it's your fault at all because she's acting crazy. My question to myself is still, how could I have stopped that from happening? What were the different points at which my behavior could have been different to get a different result? Always blaming myself for everything. It's what I do. And I think that's what everybody else needs to do, and redefine failure as constant and consistent growth. It's evolution. Every failure is a win.
Yeah, I think we do agree. Hey, Kathy, you had your hand up, and then I think Ryan was next.
Thanks, Larry. That tidbit that you just shared, Sajad, I think is very powerful. And I want to have you expand a little bit more on something that you mentioned. You mentioned kind of the new nice, direct, being concise. Expand on that, because I think it's very valuable.
Thanks for asking. So it's redefining normal people terms. So normal people have a certain particular view of failure. And as an entrepreneur, that's not what failure is. Being nice, I hate nice. I hate wish, hope, luck, try, busy. If you're busy, you're an idiot. That has nothing to do with productivity. Activity does not equal productivity. Being busy is not a good thing to be. It should be, what are you producing? And nice, I think being nice is being honest with people. I'm well-intentioned, and I say things that make other people very, very uncomfortable. I hold the mirror to people's face, and that's not nice, or it's not considered nice. I think it's very nice.
I think it's very nice.
I don't lie, I don't cheat, I don't steal. I pride myself on my integrity. And people always, you know, what they like to do is cite the personal one. What if you don't like your girl's outfit, right? Well, I say, babe, you're very beautiful. I don't like that outfit. Doesn't have anything to do with her. It's the dress I don't like, not the girl. So there's a way to always be honest with people. It's not what you say, it's how you say it. And the right thing to do, in my perspective, like when, say, somebody gives a speech at an event and then everybody goes, good job, good job, good job. 99% of these presentations are crap. You're reinforcing bad behavior. You're telling somebody that's not doing a good job that they're doing a good job. That's not a good thing to do. That does not make you a good person. I have a different perspective on nice.
I love what you're saying. And, you know, this it's called a gift, actually, when somebody tells you the truth. So Dave and I were meeting with our YouTube, we're putting up this YouTube channel pretty soon, and he's helping with a lot of the kind of messaging and stuff that we're working on. And we showed him, Dave put a video together, which I thought was awesome. And we showed it to him, and he's just like, It's confusing. He didn't like it. And thank you.
Larry, you should talk to Linda as well. If I haven't made that introduction, I should, because she will get you on the first page of YouTube.
Thank you.
Yeah,
So
I just
Kathy,
thought that was a very valuable thing that Sajad has shared with me, and I thought I just wanted to make sure the whole group heard it, because I think I come from the nice category of, just I don't even mean to do it, but I think for women it comes a little bit more easily, and I took a different approach and perspective, honestly, after speaking to Sajad on this subject. And it's like, I really am not doing anyone a favor. And it's not nice, because if you deliver it properly and it's clear and concise and direct, you're going to help somebody out a lot more. And another Sajad term, you're going to add massive value to that human's life. So I just wanted to prompt that a little bit. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for the question.
hey, Ryan.
Let me unmute. Hey guys. So I did a post just the other day, and as you're talking, Sajad, it reminded me of this post, because I've heard you say that you like really dislike people or hate people. I know, like, you're kind of saying that tongue in cheek. And I did this post that said, some mornings I wake up and want to disappear into the woods and never be found again. And then I have coffee and it's back to work. And it reminded me, as you're talking, I'm like, you seem like the guy who kind of would do that. Like, you would just disappear in the woods and never be found again type of guy. And it brings me to my question, which is, why are you doing this then? Like, why are you doing, you're fantastic at it. I love your personality. I think it's so unique and refreshing, the honesty and your straightforward approach. So why are you doing this, and what drives you now?
There's 4 drugs of happiness. There's dopamine, serotonin, endorphins, and oxytocin. The best drug you can get as a human being, the animal of the human being, is called oxytocin. You get it in 3 different ways. You can get it through breastfeeding, doing heroin, or helping other people. So if you think you're a good person, I like to help people. No, you don't. You're an animal, and you were programmed biologically to serve others so that we would be communal. So I'm getting a drug, the same one I would get if I did heroin. I'm getting to feel good about myself. I'm getting to do work that empowers other people and lets them live their dreams. And I get paid a good amount of money for doing that, fair market value. Yeah, I mean, the work is awesome. Like, I don't have to work. I mean, this does not feel like, I yell at people for a lot of money. I would do that for free. So yeah, this does not feel like work at all to me. And I'm really helping these freaking people's lives. And it's a cool thing to see. It's fun to see the success of other people and to be a part of that.
Great, thank you.
Hey, David. I think you're on mute.
You're muted, bro.
Yeah, I had to unmute myself. And plus there's a couple of Davids in the room. I had to make sure I was like the right David.
Yeah, I may be out of order here, so somebody help me out. But why don't you go
That's
next?
all right.
and then
I'll be fairly quick.
it
One
was
of the things about
Frank, Kevin.
being a solopreneur is that you're not really, I mean, you're selling something in real time. However, if you have like a company of employees, goods, services, et cetera, a corporation, with people beyond yourself, you're building towards something that you could potentially, transition and sell. So one of the things I think that you need to do as a solopreneur is you need to also think about, what your transition is going to be, what your end game is, how you're going to parlay that. And if you're not going to parlay that, you definitely cannot be living close to the edge all the time. You have to just take discipline and take out that 10% or that 15% or whatever it is every single time you get a check and put it into your IRA. You cannot be counting on if you're not going to sell your business per se, because you don't have like a business to sell, like a tangible thing, you're screwed at the end of the day by living close to the edge. So I'm just saying, if you do, you'd have to be not only disciplined in terms of your work, your day-to-day work, like Sajad put out, you have to be financially disciplined to set money aside for when you're not going to be able to conduct this activity anymore, or potentially when society doesn't need whatever the activity is that you're engaged in. At some point, maybe it will run to its end course, and that'll be that.
So we start there. So the way that I do it is I start with the mapping out your best life destination in multiple dimensions. So one of the dimensions is personal life. So what do you want your personal life to be like? What does that really look like? Second, now everybody can find their own way to do this. This is how I look at it. As long as it includes everything, you're good. And the second is vision realized. So what's the legacy you want to leave? What does that company need to look like? For me, it will be scaling and potentially be saleable, even though I'm starting to think of myself as a solopreneur now, not an entrepreneur, which is different. And then the third part is joy of work. So I know exactly that I've got a slide with 8 things on it that I want to be doing. I don't want to be doing anything else. And I have to transition towards that as it grows. And then the fourth part you're talking about is security and stability, which includes a financial plan. Because if you can't make enough money to get there and stay there, it's not going to work. For some people, you can make enough money if you have 5 clients all the time. Other people need a scalable company to do that, but it's still the same thing. It's just, it's got to be mapped out. And then when you build all your activities, your KPIs, your strategies, everything you do has got to drive up into that outcome. So I think you're totally right. But you know, the way you do that depends on who you are and where you want to go in all the dimensions.
What's the question?
It wasn't a question, Sajad. It was a statement, because I do believe that a lot of solopreneurs, it's very difficult to make ends meet. So people are bringing cash in, bringing cash in, bringing cash in, you know, and they're going through it because they need to, you know, they need to buy groceries, etc., need to pay marketing fees and all this other good stuff. And if you have a business, you know, being the real simplistic thing, I run a convenience store. Well, at some point, you know, the convenience store at the corner of, you know, 5th and Mark is going to be able to be sold, you know, for, you know, $500,000 or $1 million or whatever. Okay. You know, and I'm going to be able to sell that. So if I only save $250,000, okay, I'm still going to get the $500,000 or the $1 million when I sell my little convenience store. Alternately, if you're not doing that, you're on your own. You need to be really disciplined. And I'm just trying to be emphatic here because we don't really talk about that. You know, when I went to more solopreneur things, because I'm definitely more of a company guy. I think I'm working with Terry Ingram right now. We have a company, like a real no kidding company, you know, and that's like where I want to be. I don't want to be a solopreneur. I have no interest in being a solopreneur. But at any rate, you know, if you are a solopreneur, one of the things you absolutely have to do is set that money aside. Be equally as disciplined on setting the money aside as you are as in the rigor of Sajad's daily schedule and things like that. I mean, it's absolutely as critical as your half hour by half hour metrics, all that stuff. That should be one of your metrics. That's all I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I understand.
There's different ways to do it. And with my other company, what I did is I did all the work myself, and then I started offloading to other people once I figured it out. And then I turned it over to a president to run. And then I look at it like an investor paying me distribution or dividends. So that is a model, and that's what we did. This one may go the same way. I don't know yet. But you have to have the financial plan. And I see a lot of people about purpose and life, and yeah, you got to have that too. But if you can't make any money, it's not going to work. Hey, Kevin, how are you?
Fine. How are you, Larry?
Good.
And I wanted to just say thanks for setting this up. And Sajad, Sajad, I just want to make sure that I let you know that I appreciate you sharing your time with us today. I wanted to see if Larry and Sajad, I wanted to see if I could take this back to how we started today, which was DISC. You know, I've been a DISC practitioner for 20 plus years and used it extensively when I used to manage Intel's management leadership development. And the question I have is, have you seen individuals that have different DISC profiles from your experience? I know I have, that are more attuned to either becoming an entrepreneur or a solopreneur. And what advice would you give people that are thinking about doing this, breaking out of the corporate mold like I did 15 years ago? You know, what kind of styles have you seen that you see as more successful and ones that are not?
I can start with that. It's a great question. And I can only think about myself and what I've developed that worked for me and then see what works for other people. And the first kind of profiling thing for me is the archetypes. So there's 12 archetypes, knowing your archetype and what that archetype's here for and how to channel that archetypal energy on behalf of delivering something, a journey for other people is really important to understand. That's the first one. So anybody, when they really understand that intuitively, doing that will have massive energy. So it doesn't matter what personality type you are working for yourself, you're going to be motivated to do it, but certain things will be more uncomfortable for you than other certain things, right? Then the DISC part for me is about understanding the market. So I don't use DISC in my own framework to understand myself as much. It's part of it, but I'm really trying to understand who I'm talking to. There's 4 kinds of people in DISC. There's this guy who wrote a book about, he made them into birds. So, you know, I don't know if you read that book, it's goofy, but it's really good. So the eagle is the D, the I is the parrot. So the D is soaring around looking for opportunities and making things happen. Easy entrepreneur. Anybody who's got a D, it's a downhill slide to do all that stuff to get out there and sell. And you're just going to do it anyways. The I, same thing. So the I is the parrot, and the I is entertaining and showing and like out there and on stage, you know. So for a D and an I, it's pretty easy naturally to be. And a lot of people I talk to, because I'm tracking this now, are in the D and the I category. The S category is what he calls a dove. So the dove are the connectors and the nest builders and the community builders and the supporters and those kind of people. I think for somebody like that, it's very important to understand how to navigate the sales piece and the confrontation part and the rejection and the personal branding and like all those hard things where you get rejected. It's very demoralizing, I think, for people in that dove category, but anybody like that can do it. But you got to know that reality-based thinking, we call it. You map out your reality. You got to understand what's causing different things to happen in that reality so you can fix the things that can be fixed to impact what you need to impact. So if you're struggling with sales and going to networking and doing whatever your sales thing are, and you're in that dove category, I think you approach it differently than if you're like an eagle in this.
Right.
The last one, the C, is the owl. Same problem. So the owl is building the stuff, right? It's the architecting and the systems and you know, the sequential stuff. People like that hate disruption and confusion and ambiguity, and you know, they want to kind of make everything controllable. Well, you can't. If you're working for yourself, you're out in the tightrope every day. I'm totally comfortable with that. I'm in that D category. I'm the captain. I'm a captain. Like, I'm just going to go. But if someone is in that C category, I think they can be incredibly successful entrepreneur, but you got to understand, you can't finish everything perfectly. Like, you got to go out there and stumble around a bit, and they don't want to do that naturally. Right. But you can learn, you can develop the skills and use the frameworks to do it.
Yeah. And I found the same thing as the, you know, if you use your terms with the owl and the dove, that those are the individuals. I usually have a conversation where someone has left the corporate world and once a month they call and say, hey, I want to do what you're doing. You know, I want to be the consultant and do executive coaching and that stuff. And let me come and work for you and just give me work. And that way I can just work 1 day a week, 1 day a month and make $5,000 or $10,000. And then the rest of the time I can go play golf. It's like, it doesn't work that way, as we all know.
That's really well said.
Yeah, but I think the key that you've said, Larry, is that I have found the same thing. The owls and the doves can be successful only if they partner. When I've seen them try to be solopreneurs, that it has really been very difficult for them. And I think what David had said earlier about the importance so much of really taking that financial gain that you have and making sure that you're reinvesting it, you're making sure that you're covering your base expenses and you have some targets is incredibly valuable. And I also see people doing that as well. So I think there's a whole combination of things that are going on. And it's really analyzing it, what we would call it at Intel, we used to call it taking informed risk, right? That hey, if I suck at this, I'm not going to do that, and I need to partner with someone, rather than saying, well, I'm just going to change my personality as an owl, and I'm going to get out there and be the parrot.
All right, I have 3 thoughts on this. Thank you for your kind words, Kevin.
My pleasure.
The way I'm trying to improve. I wasn't raised with positive reinforcement, so I'm trying to recognize when people say nice things and say thank you.
Sure, my pleasure.
Here are my 3 thoughts. Don't be an entrepreneur, number 1. Don't do it unless you have to do it. It's a whole lot easier to have a job. Entrepreneurship is you eat what you hunt. So, you don't get a paycheck. There's no real stability until you make it successful. And it's just a much higher level of stress. Part 2, I would suggest hiring me because you don't know what you're doing. Part 3, understand all the parts of entrepreneurship. So you can't really say, I don't want to do sales. It ultimately comes back to you as the head sales rep. Even if it's just a concept, you got to talk to freaking people. If you don't want to talk to people, then sell your concept and let somebody else run with it. There's no secretary, there's no admin, there's no billings department, there's no sales department, there's no collections department. There's you, and you got to do everything. And you got to be extremely well organized and sacrifice. I had a client. My instruction is you give me the hour by hour schedule with quantifiable measurements from the time you wake up to the time you go to sleep. And, some of my clients will send me the list where it's 8 hours work with a 1 hour lunch. And I'm like, you're not a corporate executive. You're an entrepreneur, right? Or they'll count things like meditation as work, or prayer or exercise or whatever, just all bullshit. So just understand that this is a totally different beast. It's way different than having another great thing. It's full of rejection. So no matter how good your system is, you're not talking to qualified leads all the time. You're talking to a lot of goofies. So it's a game of numbers. If I'm meeting with 12 people a week, so that's 48 a month. And then between 2 and 5 people are hiring me. So that's 45 people telling me I'm no good. And if I do 5 pitch meetings, I go into the 6th, cause and effect consulting is changing the world. The same energy and the same attitude. Like now because of Yolanda, I got all Les Brown in my head. He talks about the doors being slammed in your face, right? And the one kid comes from a family where he has money. And so he goes back in the car after a couple doors are slammed in his face. Les Brown is orphan, lives in an abandoned house. And he says, well, I'm going to keep going because behind one of these doors, somebody's going to say yes because he's got no other option.
Well, Sajad, I'm going to jump in and Larry, sorry to do this. If you're not good at sales, find someone else to do it. If you have a great product and service, seriously, talk to me, connect with me on LinkedIn. I do sales for companies. And so if you're not good at something, and this is what we're talking about as an entrepreneur, outsource it. If you have a great product and service, if you have a crappy product and service, Sajad's right, get out of business. But if you have something that's valuable that people in the industry want, then find somebody else to sell it. There's a lot of people that have great products that they can't sell. And Sajad, I think you'll agree with this. Some people should not be in sales. They are just not good salespeople. So find someone else to do what you can't do.
Larry and I get 10% each for your advertising.
So I'm going to counter a couple things. So the first thing is meditation to me is a business skill. Personal insight's the most important business skill you can get, but don't do it at 11 o'clock. So I get up at 5 o'clock in the morning to do that. So it's built into my system. People keep telling me stop reading all these books. Well, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to do it at 6 o'clock in the morning to 7 because I need that because I'm integrating all these systems and trying them out. So I need to keep this information coming into my head. So if you have your future best life painted out, you know what you're doing and how to get there. You got to understand the things you're trying to overcome, the constraints. So you want to build your schedule around that. So you get through those things. On the sales side, a lot of people can't afford to hire somebody to do the sales for them. So you have to learn a sales methodology that works for you. And maybe it's not traditional sales in the sense of the way other people see it. But it's got to work, and you've got to find a way to do it for a while. And then when you build up, and I'll give you an example of it for me personally. I'm doing this with Dave as a partner, and Dave is an architect, and he brings a lot of ideas to the table too, a lot of ideas. So we're just like a perfect sort of fit for building something. So I would not have the confidence I have knowing where I'm going and the scale I'm going to get to without doing this with Dave. And in business language, it's called what's it called, an integrator. So the visionary integrator combinations described really well in a book called Traction. That for me is game changing. If you want to build an infrastructure and you're a visionary, it's never going to happen. You're going to need an integrator partner.
I want to say something to this quickly, and then we got to get Shelly's question.
And then Shelly's got her hand up.
I got to go make more money at 11:30. I disagree as well. I mean, I think, I agree with the concept of outsourcing things to other people. I get that part. And what I'm telling people is you're always the ultimate sales rep.
Right.
I mean, we're always in sales. We're all selling ourselves right now. Whether it's personal or professional, you're in a constant state of sales, of showing a version of yourself that at least 5% of the population is going to like. That's what I aim for. So, you can't not be in sales. You can't, because what if somebody wants to come back to the head owner? Anyway, Shelly, what's your question?
So this is a riveting conversation. There's so much. I mean, I changed my question about 6 times just during the last 15 minutes. But one thing I wanted to address, which was fascinating to me, is that I heard a lot of discussion about corporate, like having a job, and the versus being an entrepreneur. I don't know that there's safety and security and great conversation and everything's perfect in a corporate job. I think if you look at all the things we experience as an entrepreneur or a solopreneur, we have that in our jobs. Those of us that work in corporate, I think that's something to consider, because sometimes we're working together, right? We all have the same mindset. Back to Sajad's idea of you got to believe in yourself, regardless of where you are, because people get no's at corporate jobs. There's doubt, and there is no guarantee. You don't know when that day is someone's going to call you in and say, you're fired. You have no control over that. So it's almost, when you look at them, they are parallel universes. And I think what's really interesting is if we take on entrepreneurial spirit, no matter where we are, we still have to be our best selves moving forward. And that brings me to the question for you, Sajad, and Larry could add on this. I know there's a lot of discussion about positivity, the lists we want to do, where we want to be. What do you consider, and do you consider the negatives, what we don't want? Is that equally as important as what we do want? Does it help us get there?
It is.
I don't know. I don't know for other people. For myself, I don't do anything I don't want. There's nothing in my life that's not a part of my life that I don't want to have as a part of my life. And there's nobody I'll have around me, whether it's friends or women or in business. I mean, even clients. I turned down 3 clients in the last 2 weeks because I just don't want.
Why? Did you know that you didn't want them?
Oh, one of them told me I needed sensitivity training. I don't need fucking sensitivity training. I'm laid back and easygoing.
But that's
Stupid
what you
idiot
know.
ass, dumbass female. I don't need sensitivity training. So I said, take your money and stick it. I don't want it. She said, why? I said, I don't want your money. You're going to complain to me every day for the next 6 weeks that I need to be a nice person. I told you I'm going to beat you with a big ass stick. So not all money is good money. I don't have anything in my life that makes me unhappy. Nothing. There's nothing. I'm really, really happy with my life. I'm super happy with who I am. I'm happy with whatever I have. If there's anything else that comes into my life, that's bonus. And if it's not, I had a girl over like a year ago and we're cooking food and having drinks and I got music going and she's like, man, this is a lot of fun. What would you be doing if I wasn't here? I said, probably having more fun. You know, like I don't know. I'm happy with my life. So there's nothing for me negative pushing. I guess the negative is the fear of failure. or the negative is the idea that I would have to have a job, which I never want to have again, because I'm old, I'm just really good looking. And I realize at this point in my life that it's just not gonna, I'm not gonna keep a job. I'm gonna get fired. I'm gonna get promoted in 9 months and I'm gonna get fired. So I don't think I have a negative driving me. I think that what's driving me is to do more.
I want to get Frank in here and I want to comment on what you said because I totally agree with you. And this is the shift. So the shift is everybody's a solopreneur. You have to have your own brand. You got to have your own package. You got to figure out everybody. So that's why I want to have a version of this for kids at some point, teaching kids how to do this, because you can't expect a company to take care of you. Those days are long gone.
Hey, Larry, before
Frank?
you move on, this is Dave.
Yeah.
Can I say something?
Yeah.
There's another option. There's an option C, and is what I'm doing right now. I am not a solopreneur or an entrepreneur. I am a partner with an entrepreneur. So I've been in the corporate world and I understand what you're saying about the security and all that stuff, but you can be around the feeling of entrepreneur and solopreneur without actually having that DNA. So
I appreciate everybody. Thank you. I am not going to be late to a meeting because this is what I freaking teach. And I got to go get money. Thank you guys. Thank you
Thanks
very
for
much.
coming.
Larry.
Thank you for doing this.
I'll call you later, my Ninja Warrior friend.
Frank, you're on mute.
I didn't have a question. I just put a thumbs up to what was being said. That was all.
Well, that's good because we're out of time.
I know. So, no, I appreciate what Shelley was saying. So, and I just put, quote, that was my biggest fear of working for somebody is any day they were going to call you in. You had no control. I get fired every day. I get hired every day. So,
yeah, and the only security is to build a way of thinking and have a system of frameworks, know how to use them, and be in control, be in charge. That's it.
Yep.
Whether you work for somebody else, you work for yourself, or you partner with someone who works for yourself, whatever you do, you got to figure that stuff out.
Yep.
Otherwise, the world decides what you get.
Yep. Yep.
So, all right.
Good stuff. Thank you.
Thanks everybody for coming. See you next week.
Thank you.
Bye.